The 1970s saw filmmakers pushing the boundaries of violence, body, and politics, provoking strong reactions from censors. From dystopian ultraviolence to underground horror, several movies were denied release or heavily cut in the United States or United Kingdom. Below, we explore 15 notable examples explaining why they were banned or censored. 13 will totally leave you speechless. Number 1. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Stanley Kubrick's dystopian thriller follows Alex DeLarge, a teenage gang leader who revels in ultra-violence, beating, assaulting, and even raping innocent people while listening to Beethoven. The film's graphic violence and sexual assault scenes sparked outrage. After reports of real-life copycat crimes, Kubrick himself withdrew Clockwork Orange from UK cinemas in 1973 at Kubrick's behest. It was not banned in the US. The MPAA gave it an X rating, but no cuts. And over time, critics embraced it. Clockwork Orange became a cult classic and was later recognized as culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the U.S. Library of Congress. It finally returned to UK screens in 2000, ending its decades-long suppression. Number 2. Straw Dogs, 1971. Sam Peckinpah's psychological thriller stars Dustin Hoffman as David, an American mathematician who moves with his wife Amy to a rural English village. Tensions with hostile locals erupt when David is away and Amy is brutally gang-raped in their home. The rape sequence and the brutal revenge that follows made Straw Dogs highly controversial. The BBFC granted it an X certificate for cinemas in 1971, but when a video release was proposed decades later, the board balked. In 1999, examiners refused to classify the film, arguing that one 4-minute rape scene appeared to endorse the idea that women secretly enjoy being raped, so Amy's fate seemed to glorify violence. Only after a new edit in 2002, clarifying that Amy hates the assault, did the BBFC finally pass it uncut on video. The delay made Straw Dogs a notorious example of a 1970s film, suppressed on home release. But today, it's available uncut and studied as a shocker about rage and sexual violence. Number 3. The Devils, 1971. Ken Russell's Baroque drama. The Devils is loosely based on a 17th century French exorcism scandal. It depicts a corrupt cardinal and a nunnery where repression and religious hysteria lead to a satanic orgy of possessed nuns. This culminates in a blasphemous Rape of Christ sequence where nuns cavort on a crucifix. UK censors were horrified. Warner Brothers even cut The Devils prior to the BBFC review, and the BBFC insisted on multiple further deletions to lessen the explicit sex, violence, and blood. The trimmed version was granted an X certificate in 1971, but the film provoked calls for outright bans. Many local councils in Britain refused to screen it, and Mary Whitehouse's campaigners denounced it. In America, it also gained an X rating, forcing another 6 minutes of cuts for an R-rated theatrical version. In practice, The Devils was heavily Bowdlerized for years. The UK video release of the 1971 cut only happened in 1997, and the missing passages remain largely unreleased in the original film. Its enduring legacy is as one of the era's most infamously censored films, a grotesque satire of power that was almost impossible to show uncensored. Number 4. Last Tango in Paris, 1972. Bernardo Bertolucci's erotic drama stars Marlon Brando and Maria Schneider as two strangers in Paris who embark on an intense anonymous affair. The film's frank sexuality, especially a notorious butter-on-skin scene, stirred moral outrage. In the UK, the BBFC demanded a 10-second cut of the butter scene before granting an X rating in 1973. In many countries, it faced bans or prosecutions for obscenity. But in the US, the film was released with an X rating, and in the UK, it played uncut after the initial edits. Over time, the controversy faded, and today the film is recognized for Brando's performance and Bertolucci's artistry, though the explicit scenes still make it rare for cable or broadcast. Number 5. The Exorcist, 1973. William Friedkin's horror classic follows a young girl possessed by a demon and the two priests who attempt an exorcism. Its intense scenes of demonic violence, profanity, and spiritual terror shocked audiences. Upon its UK release in March 1974, Christian groups protested vigorously. In places like Wales, they pressured local councils. The Exorcist was actually banned from some towns on the grounds that it was offensive. After 1974, it continued to play widely. The controversies didn't end there. The film's first home video release was blocked in 1988 out of fear underage viewers would seek it out, withdrawing all UK video copies. Only after a theatrical re-release in 1998 did the BBFC relent. In 1999, The Exorcist was passed uncut on VHS DVD with an 18 rating. Its legacy is huge, box office smash and perennial top horror. But it endures as a film, once so feared that even home viewings were locked down for years. Number 6. Caligula, 1979. Tinto Brass's epic about the debauched Roman Emperor Caligula became infamous for its hardcore sex scenes. Filmed by Gore Vidal and financed by Penthouse publisher Bob Guccione, the released cut included graphic simulated and real sex acts. When Caligula reached the UK in 1980, it was treated as the most controversial film of the 80s. Customs agents seized the print, and the BBFC demanded removal of all sexually explicit material, plus further cuts for violence and obscenity. Eventually, a heavily trimmed version was issued with an X certificate. Many local councils still refused to screen it. The film's video debut in 1990 was also cut by about 50 minutes, reducing it to softcore. Only much later, as standards liberalized, were uncut versions ever seen. By 2008, even the previously banned passages could be passed with an 18 certificate. Caligula today is remembered as a wild, cult classic, legally untouchable in 1979 to 81, but now regarded more as camp political satire than pornographic provocation. Number 7. Salo, or The 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. Pier Paolo Pasolini's final film transposes the Marquis de Sade's 18th century tale of libertinage to Mussolini's fascist Italy. It graphically depicts powerful libertines kidnapping 18 teenagers and subjecting them to torture, rape, humiliation, and murder over 4 circles of perversion. Salo was immediately declared obscene. The BBFC rejected it in January 1976. No certificate was granted. It only screened at a London film club in 1977 without BBFC certification, leading to a police raid after a few days. The film was effectively banned in Britain until 2000. That year, Pasolini's cut was finally approved for UK cinemas and video. But it's worth noting that even today, many of the most extreme scenes are considered genuinely disturbing. In contrast, the US gave Salo a limited release in 1977. But in Canada and Australia, it faced outright bans for decades. Salo remains notorious as perhaps the most shocking film of its era, a ferocious political allegory that was considered too brutal to show. Number 8. The Last House on the Left, 1972. Wes Craven's low-budget horror tells of 2 teenage girls who are kidnapped, raped, and murdered by a group of psychopaths, only for the killers to unwittingly take refuge at one victim's home, where the parents discover their crime and enact bloody revenge. The depiction of home invasion and rape was so extreme that UK censors balked. In July 1974, the BBFC flatly refused classification. Secretary Stephen Murphy wrote that the film had no redeeming merit. We can find no scrap of obvious artistic justification. In other words, it was judged too objectionable to certify. When the distributor even asked the Greater London Council for a local license, the GLC agreed with the BBFC and also refused to let London cinemas screen it. The film languished unseen for years. Only in the 1980s did Craven become famous, and the film gained retrospective showings. In short, The Last House on the Left was effectively banned in Britain for its raw sexual violence, though in the US it was released and later became a cult classic. Number 9. I Spit on Your Grave, 1978. Mir Zarchi's rape and revenge shocker follows Jennifer Hills, a young writer who is viciously gang-raped by local men. After they leave her for dead, she hunts them down and tortures each in turn. Its graphic assault scenes earned it infamy. In the UK, it was never shown theatrically, but as a VHS tape, it became one of the original video nasties in the 1980s, films that were prosecuted under obscenity laws. After years of underground bootlegs, Zarki finally submitted I Spit on Your Grave to the BBFC in 2001. To obtain an 18 certificate, the board demanded about 7 minutes of cuts, specifically removing the most eroticized shots of rape. The censored version was allowed, but the uncut film remained banned until the cuts were made. Today its reputation is mixed, seen by some as an exploitation relic and by others as a feminist revenge fantasy. But at the time, it was one of the most heavily censored films due to sexual violence. Number 10. Tropic of Cancer, 1970. Joseph Strick's adaptation of Henry Miller's notorious novel is set in late 1960s Paris and follows an impoverished writer who lives on the generosity of friends, spending his days drinking and pursuing women. The novel had been a test case for obscenity decades earlier, and the film was equally frank in its sexual content. In the United States, it was rated X in 1970, but in the UK, censors took no chances. The BBFC refused an X certificate in 1970, effectively banning it. In other words, Tropic of Cancer was deemed too explicit to show at all in British cinemas or videos at that time. The unedited film did not receive a UK release until many years later, when attitudes towards sexuality relaxed. Its censorship history is a reflection of the period's changing obscenity laws. By the late 1990s, the film was considered a straightforward adult drama rather than pornography. Number 11. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Tobe Hooper's low-budget horror follows a group of teens who fall prey to a murderous Texas family led by the chainsaw-wielding Leatherface. Though shot in a grainy, realistic style, its atmosphere of relentless terror and hints of cannibalism caused panic. In the UK, it famously became a video nasty in the 1980s. It was added to the DPP's list, making any video copy illegal. Until 1999, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre could not be sold on tape in Britain. The Guardian noted that with its 2002 reissue of Straw Dogs, the ban on a clutch of 1970s films, including Texas Chainsaw, was finally lifted. In short, it was effectively censored out of circulation in Britain for over 25 years. Ironically, Chainsaw was never officially banned for theaters. It played in UK cinemas in the 1970s under a certificate. By the 2000s, it was available fully uncut on DVD. The film's legacy is huge. It helped invent the slasher genre. Its early censorship only enhanced its legend as one of the most forbidden horrors of its time. Number 12. Pink Flamingos, 1972. John Waters' midnight movie cult classic is a black comedy about two sets of eccentric characters battling for the title of filthiest person alive. The film is filled with outrageous stunts, but is best known for one infamously revolting scene. The drag queen Divine actually eats real dog feces on camera. In Britain, Pink Flamingos was never formally banned, but it was reviled. When first submitted for video in 1989, the BBFC demanded massive cuts. James Furman's trial edit removed 3 minutes and 4 seconds, including Divine's dog poop snack, scenes of violence against animals, an explicit mother-son fellatio scene, masturbation torture, and the singing anus gag. Only the sanitized version was allowed on UK VHS in 1990. Waters' film kept returning to the BBFC. By 1999, even most scatological moments were grudgingly accepted, but some cuts still remained. It wasn't until 2008, 36 years after its making, that Pink Flamingos was passed 18 uncut. In the interim, it became a symbol of transgressive cinema. Its cultural impact is profound. Cited by the Library of Congress for cultural significance, it flipped the bird at censorship and influenced generations of underground filmmakers. Number 13. Deep Throat, 1972. This 1972 pornographic comedy centers on a woman who can only climax when her clitoris is stimulated via her throat. Upon its release, it quickly became a national phenomenon in the U.S., but it also ran into legal trouble. Several U.S. jurisdictions declared it obscene. For example, Tampa banned its screening entirely, and Miami also prohibited it. These city-level bans reflected widespread moral panic around hardcore pornography in the early 70s. Eventually, the U.S. Supreme Court narrowed obscenity law, but Deep Throat remained a rallying point in legal battles. In the UK, explicit porn was mostly unavailable theatrically at the time, so Deep Throat had no certified release. It circulated only underground. Its legacy is mainly as the 1970s most famous adult film, whose censorship battles helped define the legal boundaries of on-screen sex. Number 14. Monty Python's Life of Brian, 1979. This Monty Python satire follows Brian, a klutzy young Jewish man in ancient Judea who is mistaken for the Messiah. Its irreverent comedy took aim at religious dogma in many places that provoked accusations of blasphemy. In the UK, the National Rating Board gave it a relatively mild AA rating, but local councils wielded power. In practice, 11 British councils outright banned films from their cinemas, and 28 more raised the minimum age to X as a protest. Despite this, Life of Brian went on to become a huge box office hit, and critics later hailed it as comedy genius. Its censorship saga ended in the mid-1980s as attitudes softened, but it remains a famous example of how political and religious satire in cinema can provoke local bans. Number 15. The Tin Drum, 1979. Volker Schlöndorff's The Tin Drum tells of Oscar, a boy who decides to stop growing at age 3 to avoid the adult world, set against the rise of Nazism. The film includes a controversial scene. A prepubescent Oscar seduces and undresses a pregnant woman. In 1997, a county judge in Oklahoma deemed that scene illegal under U.S. law on child pornography and banned the film entirely in Oklahoma County. The decision was later overturned on appeal, but the ban drew international attention to the film. The UK had no such ban. The BBFC passed it back in 1980. The Tin Drum went on to win the Palme d'Or and Oscar for Best Foreign Film, and its cultural impact includes touching on themes of war and innocence. However, the Oklahoma case remains a landmark example of censorship. A legally acclaimed 1970s film, caught up in a 1990s obscenity ruling,